Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Hey guys, we're your hosts, Em and Jay, and today we're talking about episode 6 of the 5th season of Netflix's She-Ra. This episode has quite a few subplots, to the point where it's a little bit all over the place. We get to spend some time with Micah and Frosta, along with Natasha and Spinnerella. We don't really get to learn a lot about them in this episode, but at least they talk. But the main plot focuses on Catra, and I think that they forgive her way too quickly. A major problem with her redemption arc is that she doesn't really get much of an arc. It's way too rushed, and they pretty much only touch on things that needed to be fleshed out, which is pretty frustrating because you can see bits and pieces that are working, but the pacing is so fast that it just doesn't land where it needs to, so it makes her character development less believable, and she gets off the hook way too easy. She destroyed the world, and the only thing that saved them was Queen Angela's sacrifice at the last minute, so her actions had lasting consequences that never get addressed. That's not really something that can just be glossed over with an apology. The episode begins with the ship having trouble, and they've lost control of it. The flow's a little weird because in the last episode, She-Ra fixed the ship, but now it's busted again, and Trapped is trying to fix it, with Wrong Hordak trying to assist her. Glimmer's a little nervous about Wrong Hordak, which is understandable, but Bo assures her that he's harmless because he accidentally fried him. It's still kinda weird though. Adora comes in from checking on Catra, and that's most of what she's been doing since they got to the ship. The others tell her that she should just let Catra rest. They want to celebrate that they escaped Horde Prime, they're on their way back to Etheria, and She-Ra's back too. Bo asks how she was able to become She-Ra without the sword, and Adora says she doesn't know. It's like She-Ra was always there just waiting for her to find her again. And unfortunately that's most of what we get with She-Ra. I really wish that they would explore more about where She-Ra came from, and how it actually works. I feel like Twilight Sparkle when she was trying to figure out Pinky's pinky sense. I just want answers. I guess it's just a power of friendship kind of thing, because Glimmer says that She-Ra was there when her friends needed her the most, and that's what matters. But Bo makes sure to add her friends and a girl who threw him off a cliff. She also invaded Bright Moon, invaded Selenius twice and managed to destroy it, blew up Princess Prom, held all of them as prisoners at some point, sent Entrapta to Beast Island, manipulated Adora and Scorpia, destroyed the world, got Glimmer's mom trapped between dimensions. Throwing Bo off a cliff is just scratching the surface. But overall things are going alright for them, except that the ship being broken means they're only moving at 30% of their speed, so it'll take a while for them to get there, unless it's fixed. But Glimmer's just happy they're heading home, and she wants to celebrate by cooking them a meal, which surprises Bo since he's never seen her cook, but she decides that Wrong Hordak can help. I guess she's cool with him now? She says he must know a lot about cooking, and drags him off, but actually he doesn't know much about anything. He still thinks that they're with Horde Prime too, despite them openly talking about how he's their enemy, but Glimmer drags him away, and Adora decides to go check on Catra again. This is basically her whole focus this episode, so Bo tries to handle the ship on his own. Elsewhere we see Horde Prime soldiers tracking the ship, and it's already been established that the Horde isn't supposed to be able to track this ship, so something's up. Catra's trying to rest, but she keeps having nightmares of Horde Prime. It kinda reminds me about how last season she was having nightmares about the portal. Unfortunately that didn't really go anywhere. I wish they would have expanded on this, instead of just telling us this was happening, but it is what it is. Adora comes in and tries to comfort Catra, but she shuts her out. Adora asks about her nightmares, but Catra says the only nightmare she's having is of a blonde girl who thinks she's better than everyone else, constantly barging in on her, so she's still being abrasive and difficult. Adora is still being supportive of her though, despite the fact that she just insulted her to her face, on top of all the other horrible stuff she's done to her. I guess she's just really forgiving and loyal, which is weird because this wasn't the way she was acting in the first season. She basically never thought about Catra or acknowledged her unless she was actually on screen. Anyway, Adora suggests that Entrapta take the chip off her neck, but Catra lashes out at her again, insisting that she doesn't want to see anyone, especially Entrapta, because she doesn't want to face her after the whole Beast Island thing. She's basically convinced that everyone hates her, which isn't true. Admittedly, we're not fans of hers, but the characters in the show don't hate her. Catra's basically just throwing a temper tantrum, insisting that she can take care of herself. Adora finally gets fed up and flips her out of bed. It's nice to see her stand up for herself, but she asks why she's acting this way after they saved her life, although I'm kinda surprised that Adora's surprised. Catra is an ungrateful brat after all, and that's putting it mildly. The two of them argue after Catra insists that she didn't want them to come back for her, and she knows how much they hate her. Adora says that she never hated her, so Catra says that she's dumber than she thought, and goes to sulk. Obviously she's gonna need a lot of time to figure figure this out, which would be fine, but they're not going to give her that time, because there are only so many episodes left and they want to make this ship canon. Adora admits that she's an idiot for thinking this time would be different, only to find out that nothing has changed, and then walks off after Catra tells her to leave her alone. Adora honestly does have the right to hate her. She did terrible things to her, and her friends, and Etheria as a whole, but they spent the entire series having Catra doing terrible things only to try to rush a redemption arc in the second half of the last season, so it just doesn't have the time to develop properly. Back on Etheria, Swiftwind is excited because he felt She-Ra, and he's telling Micah about it, while the others are playing Ice Ball. Natasha and Spinnerella are playing against Frosta. I don't know why she doesn't have a partner. Natasha scores a point, but then Spinnerella uses her powers to make Frosta catch it, which Nets isn't happy about because they're competitive, but Spin says they're playing this game to cheer Frosta up. But Micah comes in and tries to be Frosta's partner, but she gets really insulted when he refers to her as Kiddo. She reminds him that she's the leader of her own kingdom, and then calls him old man, which is pretty rude, and not the best diplomacy. He's the only royal of Bright Moon left on the planet. Also not the best way to prove you're mature. Nets and Spins go over to him and explain she's just upset about the invasion, and that he shouldn't take it personally. Has Spinnerella always been this tall? It kind of threw me off the first time I saw this episode, but Mike is worried that kids don't like him, because he still thinks Glimmer's a kid. He's worried she won't like him when she gets back to Etheria, and asks them how to get kids to like him. Natasha points out he's taking this very personally, so he changes the subject, and says he needs their help, because Alberon's being attacked. Maybe he should have led with that. Swiftwind comes over and is very excited about this attack, which is really inappropriate. Everyone's confused, so he explains that he's excited because they're really good at throwing parties, which is still really inappropriate. Nets suggests that Frosta should come too so they can all have some fun. They're really convinced this is gonna go well. Spoilers, it doesn't, but they head out. Meanwhile, Adora is venting to Glimmer, complaining about how she thought things would be different now, and they could actually fix things with Catra. Glimmer reminds her that this is Catra they're talking about, and asks if she actually thought she would just instantly become a totally different person. It's surprising that Glimmer would be the voice of reason here, but she does know Catra pretty well, considering the fact that they're a lot alike. Adora says that she was at least expecting a thank you, considering the fact that they saved her life, but she can't even muster that. Personally, I'm not surprised. But in her frustration, she grabs a handful of jelly and throws it, and it ends up hitting Wrong Hordak in the face. He doesn't react to it though, and just says that he believes in Horde Prime. Adora questions why he's here since they haven't actually met yet. Glimmer says that he's helping her with dinner, but it turns out he doesn't actually eat food. He instead has some kind of special fluid to eat. Glimmer comments about how these rations were Mara's, and questions if they expired, but these things are 1,000 years old. If they haven't crumpled to dust by now, I guess you can give it a shot. I don't think I would though. Seriously, is there some kind of magic involved here? Bo calls them into the control room, so they hurry off, but not before Glimmer throws an apron on Wrong Hordak. It turns out they're being tailed by some of Horde Prime's drones. Glimmer assumes it's a coincidence since they can't track the ship, and Adora wants to know if they can hide somewhere. Entrapta wants to hide in a nearby asteroid belt, and she's really excited about it. She says it would be fun. You'd think she'd be worried about damaging Darla or something. Bo objects, saying the ship is still falling apart, and then on cue a monitor falls off the control panel. We really gave She-Ra more credit than she deserved last episode. I'm not sure why they have a monitor though, considering the fact that they mainly use holograms, but I digress. Adora claims they have no better ideas, so asteroids it is. This seems like the wrong thing to do though. Can't they just find a planet to hide out on for a bit? Good thing they have that plot armor. Bo reluctantly goes along with the idea. The computer says that it doesn't recommend this course of action, so Bo has to manually bypass it. He's then given manual controls, and he looks extremely nervous about it, but the autopilot is down. Back on Etheria, the Princess Alliance is still making their way to the mission, but Frost is having trouble keeping up because her legs are shorter than everybody else's. So Micah offers to carry her on his shoulders, and says that he used to carry Glimmer all the time. Frosta gets offended again and says she doesn't need his help, which he starts tearing up at. I bet she would accept a ride from Swiftwind, but Swiftwind is too busy singing to himself about how excited he is for this party. It's so inappropriate, and that's not what a hero is. You don't save a place just because you know you're gonna get a great party out of it. That's really rude. You save them because it's the right thing to do, even if there's no reward. Not that you can't ever be rewarded for heroic deeds, but this is just too much. But when they get there, they find the place deserted. There's no people or attacking drones. Eventually the people do come out, and they welcome them as rebel heroes, so something's obviously wrong. Micah asks where the invaders are, but the mayor claims there was a mistake, and she says she's sorry they made them worry. The mayor offers them supper to make it up to them, and Swiftwind's pretty excited. He goes straight for it. And Micah tells Frost that he could go for some cake, but Frosta also takes offense to that because she's trying to prove that she's not a little kid, and Micah can't understand how kids don't like cake anymore. But if everything's really fine here, maybe they should just move on. It's not like the rest of the planet isn't still in peril. Do they really have time to just party? Obviously something is wrong, but you know, it's not like the invasion has just stopped. Swiftwind is expecting a party like last time, so he's excited for the others to experience it. But when they get to the party room, there isn't much of a party going on. Everyone's just standing around, smiling, and it's creeping them out. Back on the ship, Bo has positioned them amongst the asteroids so they'll hopefully not be spotted, but then they're immediately fired upon by the enemy, because of course they are. Catra is flung against a wall, and this time she sees different visions than her usual nightmares. She sees the horde invading Etheria, but before she can really process what she saw, she gets flung around more. It's probably safe to assume that they're tracking her chip. The Princess Alliance is struggling against Horde Prime's ships, and Entrapped is trying to figure out what's going on. She's able to pinpoint that they're tracking something on board, and Adora manages to put 2 and 2 together that they're tracking Catra's chip. Considering the fact that the entire point of the chip is to link up the victim to the hive mind, they probably should have considered this to begin with. Adora grabs Entrapped and complains how Catra is ruining their lives again. Bo objects to taking Entrapped away when they still need to fix the shields, but Adora just tells him to try not to hit anything. While I do think they need to get the chip off of Catra, it's probably not the best idea to leave the ship in such a vulnerable position. They are being chased through an asteroid field, plus Adora was kind of mean to Bo, which was unnecessary. Back at the party, the people are just going through the motions, and it's creeping out the Princess Alliance, so Frosta suggests it's time to go, but Micah suggests a game of Ice Ball might liven things up, or maybe they could try to do some investigating, keep an eye out for anything suspicious, like some strange glowing chips on the back of their necks. I get that people can change after not seeing them for a while, plus there's this whole invasion thing going on, that would probably stress anybody out, but this is just a little too out there. But Frosta gets offended again, so she walks off, and Micah cries that his daughter's gonna hate him when she gets back. Meanwhile, Nets and Spins have gotten separated, which might be the most suspicious thing to happen here, since when have they been separated this entire series? Natasha sees Spinnerella and tells her she doesn't like being alone at parties, and asks where she went. Spinnerella says something really weird just happened, but Natasha doesn't let her elaborate and just says that everything's weird here. Anything specific you wanna say, Spinnerella? But the others walk up to them and say that they're leaving, and that maybe there's somebody else who actually needs help. Swiftwind says that he doesn't understand what happened, and it's like the whole town's been replaced with totally different people. Well, kind of. The exit slams shut and the mayor says that it's getting dark, so they should stay. Micah says they should really be getting back to camp, but I think it's past the time to put your foot down. But the mayor says they should stay and join Horde Prime, and everyone's eyes start glowing green. So the whole town's been chipped. I wonder what the process of this actually is, since it always seems to happen off screen. We cut back to Catra, who's struggling with her chip. It seems like she can see what's going on in Etheria. Adora comes in with Entrapta, which stresses out Catra more. She doesn't want to face any of her actions, and would rather run away from her problems. Adora explains that Entrapta is going to remove her chip, but Catra protests, saying that Entrapta will kill her, which catches Entrapta off guard, and she questions why Catra would even think that. But then she remembers how she stabbed her in the back, sent her to Beast Island, and then stole her work to destroy the world. And hearing it out loud makes Catra sheepish. At least she knows what she did was wrong. Although because the story is so rushed, it's hard to tell if she actually feels bad or if she's afraid of the consequences. It seems like they are going for her feeling bad though. Entrapta says that she understands, but then immediately pulls out her tools to start the operation, without actually putting Catra's mind at ease. But before she can protest more, Adora insists they have to remove it because they're being tracked through it, and they'll all be killed if they don't, and adds if she really thinks that hiding from the people that she hurt will make her feel better, then they'll drop her off afterwards and she'll never have to see them again, or her again. Well, they can't just drop her off. She still has to face trial for her crimes against Etheria. Adora starts to leave, but then Catra grabs her by the hand and asks her to stay. She's not gonna face trial, is she? They're just gonna focus on shipping. Why would they have her go so far if they just wanted to ship them in the end, and not actually have her face consequences for her actions? Back on Etheria, the chipped civilians attack the Princess Alliance. They attack like slow-moving zombies, so I don't think they should be a big problem for the Princess Alliance. But Natasha gets knocked over in one hit. They're still normal civilians. They don't have any superpowers. I don't even even think they can fly despite having wings. But Spins has to rush over and check on her. Frost is getting ready to ice punch people in the face when Micah rushes over and stops her. She yells at him to stop treating her like a kid, but he explains that he wasn't trying to protect her. He was trying to protect the civilians from her because they don't have superpowers. And getting ice punched in the face would probably really hurt them. Plus, they're not in control of their own actions, and they wouldn't be attacking them if they had a choice. He tells Frosta she's the strongest one there, and she can use her powers to defend them. So Frosta tells everyone to come to her. Natasa is so injured that Spinnerella has to carry her. She just got shoved to the ground by one civilian. I'm sure she can handle that. I guess they're just trying to make the situation more dramatic. Frosta builds an ice dome around them, but the civilians start clawing at it. I don't know if I believe they're strong enough to tear through the ice, but that's what they're doing. Maybe it's just strength in numbers? Back on the ship, Entrapped is getting ready to remove the chip from Catra, but Catra starts getting more flashes. She tells Entrapped to wait, but Adora yells at her saying that they don't have time for this. So Catra explains that she's still connected to the hive mind, and she can see what he's doing. Adora thinks this is too risky, which I think is a fair point. She's awake now, but he might take over her brain again. But Catra wants to try because she's worried that Adora is gonna do something stupid and get herself killed. I think it would have been nice if she wanted to do it for more than just Adora. Like, she destroyed Etheria once and now she wants to protect it. It is her home. Plus, she kinda owes them that. But she asks Adora to stay with her while she does it. So Adora agrees. We don't learn any new information from Catra, but the characters are hearing this for the first time. Mainly, Horde Prime wants revenge on Adora and wants to make her hurt. And he's chipping the people of Etheria. Adora's horrified by this, but Catra says it's already happening. At least we know Catra is getting accurate information. The ship jolts as it's being fired upon. Bo's having a very difficult time at the controls, and on top of everything, he lost visuals. So he sends Glimmer up front to be his eyes. Things aren't going much better for the Alliance back home, as the mayor is able to break through the ice dome, apparently single-handedly. Horde Prime is talking through her, claiming he only wants to bring peace, but they're rejecting it. Swiftwind calls out to She-Ra, asking if she can hear any of this, but no, she's not. I don't think she even got his messages when she transformed. So much for their sacred bond. Horde Prime insists that She-Ra isn't coming, while the townspeople pour into the dome, and a struggle ensues. Doesn't Micah have some kind of stun spell to use against them? Or maybe Spinnerella can use her wind magic to pin them to the walls while they make a break for it? Or maybe Natasa could trap them in a net. I know they don't want to hurt them, but I find it hard to believe that they'd be overwhelmed like this. They can restrain them without hurting them. Back on the ship, Darla informs them that it won't be able to withstand another strike. Catra tells Adora that she wants to go home, and Adora promises they will, so she summons a sword and transforms into She-Ra. She gets a new transformation sequence to go with her new outfit, and this is probably where they spent most of the animation budget, since the quality is better than the rest of the episode, but I do like this new sequence, and I do think it's an improvement over the previous one. Even Catra's impressed, despite the fact that she spent the whole series making fun of princesses. It cuts back to the Princess Alliance on Etheria. They're completely helpless against these civilians. Both Nets and Spins get tackled to the ground. I'm still not buying this. Do these chips give them extra strength? Because that was never established, as far as I know anyway. Horde Prime is speaking through the mayor, and he's saying more vaguely religious things, like they'll all be reborn in his image. Suddenly Swiftwind gets a She-Ra power-up, and he's able to knock out all the civilians. They decide to be impressed later and just get out of there while they still can, so they make a run for it. Back on the ship, Entrapped is trying to remove the chip from Catra's neck, but it's hard because they're still being chased by the Horde, which is making surgery difficult. Adora is fighting them off outside the ship while Glimmer's still trying to be Bo's eyes. She's really happy to see She-Ra, and to see her defeat the Horde, although Bo doesn't get to see it, so he's just stuck questioning what's going on. Elsewhere on the ship, Entrapped does manage to remove the chip from Catra, which she's very excited about, and then informs Catra that she has to go check on the ship. But Catra stops her while she's leaving, and decides to thank her for removing the chip, and also apologizes. And Entrapped forgives her. I actually really liked this small scene. I think it's believable that Entrapped would forgive her, especially since she did enjoy her time on Beast Island, up until it tried to kill her anyway. It was also separate from Adora, which is a good thing. She needs more things like this when it comes to her redemption, rather than skipping over all those things. A couple of apologies aren't going to be enough to pull her back from everything that happened this whole series. But Entrapped manages to fix the ship so the shields are back up. Bo and Adora are lying on the floor recovering from everything, and Entrapped joins them. Adora's happy that She-Ra's back, for real this time, and Bo says not a moment too soon. Glimmer and Rong Hordak come in with dinner. Somehow they've managed to make buns out of those 1,000-year-old rations. I Everyone else is just surprised that Glimmer was able to cook something. Glimmer explains she used to make this dish with her mom, which is something I wish we could have seen, since usually when the two of them were on screen they were just arguing. But everyone digs in. Catra comes in and awkwardly sits by them, not saying anything. Everyone stares at her for a second before inviting her to come eat too, so she's basically a part of the group now. I'm sure they wanted to redeem Catra from the beginning, but they should have started a lot sooner, and they really should have considered how far they were having her go to the dark side before having her be redeemed. I mean, she's eating a dish that Glimmer used to make with her mom, who is no longer around because she got her stuck between two dimensions. But that isn't brought up. But back on Etheria, the Princess Alliance is heading to camp. They're not sure what happened back there, but Swiftwind says that She-Ra will know, and that she's headed back to Etheria. He can feel her getting closer every day. It really is a shame that Swiftwind has cared so much about Adora, but Adora's never mentioned him once this whole time. Meanwhile, I'm still wondering where the Unizerd is. Frosta apologizes for calling Micah an old man, and she says that Glimmer's really lucky to have him as a father. He's really touched by that, but Frosta adds that he's gotta stop trying so hard. As they walk, Natasha says they don't know who they can trust anymore, but as long as they stick together, they'll be okay. Only for it to be revealed that Spinnerella has a chip on the back of her neck. This reveal is kind of like when we found out DT was Flutterina. This reveal is also probably too soon, although I'm not as bothered by it as the one with DT, but they could save a few reveals for later, but that's where the episode ends. This episode was a step in the right direction for Catra, but just a step. She really needed a lot of work, and they made a lot of mistakes with this character if this is where they wanted her to end up. Saying she's sorry doesn't actually make up for the terrible things she did, but it's like they kicked things into overdrive just so they can get to the shipping, which I think does a disservice to her character. She and Adora have a lot of room to grow as characters individually, but instead of fleshing them out, they're just rushing the ship. As for the B-plot, I was surprised to see the Princess Alliance get overrun by normal people. I understand not wanting to hurt them, but I don't think they should have really been a threat either, but instead Natasha went down in one hit. Micah was pretty sympathetic since he's trying to adjust and get back to his normal life, which involves connecting with his daughter who he hasn't seen in years. Frosta kinda went back to her portrayal in Princess Prom, where she didn't want to be seen as a child, even though she was acting pretty childish after that. We haven't seen that in a while, so it's kinda weird to bring it back so late in the series, but it's kind of funny that she was following Glimmer around and really wanted to be her friend, and now Glimmer's dad is trying to connect with her. And then there was Swiftwind, who was way too excited to party in this situation. Instead of focusing on helping people, he was just focusing on the reward, which isn't very heroic. But those were our thoughts. What did you guys think? Be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments below. We'd like to give a shout out to our members: Caleb Nelson, Stutania, Tyrant Carnivore, Adam K, Shiny Orc Boy, Taylor Ramirez, The Rabbit Mancer, Dash Hound, Haley Kosheva, and Ray Thulu. If you'd like to become a member, you can hit the join button next to the subscribe button. Thanks so much for watching, we really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this content, you can leave a like and subscribe to the channel to see more like this. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye everyone. Bye guys.